I like to think that none of us have experienced this severe national outbreak ever in our lives. So what's something that you have been faced, whether it's in your career or outside of it, that has marked some uncertainty, and how did you make that positive?
I'll take that question. Why not? So I was fired from my first job right out of the gate. Took a couple of years in, but was let go, and I should have seen it coming, and I didn't. But after I got over the shock, the one thing I remember my manager telling me is that at some point in your life, this is going to be a pimple on your ass. And in the moment, it's hard to imagine because in the moment you're panic and you're wondering, what are you going to do? What's next? But what it didn't give me an opportunity to do is kind of reassess and look inward and think about what it is I wanted to do next. And I, in that introspection, realized that the thing I was doing at that moment, and maybe the reason it didn't work out, is it wasn't right for me. I really wasn't very good at it. And I think everybody found that out. But it allowed me to think about what parts of that job were exciting to me. And it turned out that the thing I liked the most was I was in marketing. I was a brand manager. The thing I liked the most was the times the ad agency came to visit. And it was when I was most interested, most productive, can contribute the most, and decided that was maybe the right next step. And it turned out that it was. So it's a long game. I'll say that. It's all a long game, at least particularly for you. It's a short game for Van and for me, but it's a longer game for you guys.
Hey, speak for yourself, man.
Well, you already spoke for yourself. You said you were balding and gray. So
it's true. It's true.
So I'd say take advantage of this time to get clarity about where you want to work and the type of title you're seeking. Yeah.
I can jump in. So I think all of us have gone through moments of uncertainty and just kind of like what's next in our careers, or even just our life. I will draw inspiration from what I think the graduates are going through right now, because I graduated in 2006, which was also during a recession for the US. And I had done probably all the right things that everyone here is doing, got the internships and on the honor roll and student, government kind of extracurricular stuff, and had sent out dozens and dozens and dozens of resumes and had a couple of leads, but I was coming close to graduation and did not have a job and was terrified, anxious, just like what's gonna happen. I didn't want to go home to my parents' house, which is totally fine because they would have received me with open arms, but I personally just was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. So I did like a gap year after college, and I went to France and I lived there for a year. I enrolled in a program where I was studying the language in the morning, and then I got a gig in the afternoon as a babysitter. And it was awesome, had a great time. Fast forward to when I moved back to the States, I was able to find a job within that Yellow Pages marketing company within 2 months. And I'm not gonna say that that was like the reason why I got the job, but it definitely couldn't hurt. Clearly, that's not an option for a lot of the graduates, crossing borders and flying to, faraway places. But the point is, how are you maximizing this time right now that you have the kind of downtime? Like, is it taking an online coding course, or is it like taking over the social media pages of, a small business, or maybe getting Google Ad certification? Just how are you maximizing the time that you have right now? Because anything that you can do to create some stickiness or just memorability when you're in the sea of applicants is going to help you in some way, shape, or form, and it'll help build your confidence.
I can jump in, and I'll be quick. I think for me, early in my career, while I was actually in high school about to go to college, I had asked someone about advertising. I was really excited about the industry. It was a senior level creative, and they were quite clear and quite blunt. They said, someone that looks like you might not have an easy chance in an industry like this. And my feelings were hurt a little bit. And before I walked out, though, what he said was, and if you let that stop you, they win. And so you can't let a situation stop you. You can't let other people stop you. You just have to figure out your path and your way to get through. And and there's not always an easy way, but there is always your way, and you just have to push through. And I think that's what helped me to get through.
And I'll jump in. Mine's a little bit of a short story, so bear with me. It won't be long though.
It's a short story,
Just
so bear with me, it won't be long. Okay.
yeah, it won't be long. So going back a little bit, I grew up a first generation Cambodian. My parents moved here in the early 80s because they were forced to because of the war. So they're really rooted in their Cambodian traditions. So kind of growing up, I had a cultural gap. And so I never really had discussions around like careers and paths and what I should study in school. So I kind of had to kind of figure out that path on my own and network, which we'll get into later. But so the moment I'll talk about is like when I graduated from VCU. I studied advertising, art direction. I came out of my senior year feeling really good. I had a great portfolio that I felt, and then I had some awards, had some internships, and my classmates and professors. And then in the split moment, I was back at home at my parents' house applying for jobs. So that was a moment where I was kind of trying to figure it out, and it was kind of dark, like applying for 100 jobs, didn't hear back. And then, so I think the moment that it really changed for me was my mom came in and was like, hey, I need a website. She had a salon at the time. And I was like, well, I might as well build a website because if I don't, she's probably going to stop feeding me. So I kind of forced myself to learn this new skill set. And it actually helped me in my career today. I talked about getting that internship in New York. I applied to jobs with this website in my portfolio. And I would sit down in interviews and talked about the website and even talked about my client, which was my mom, saying, oh yeah, she was really tough. But here's how I managed that relationship. So I'm going to end this by saying, turn your stress into your strength, and then find new skill sets because it will open doors.
Oh, I'm glad that you touched on strength because it goes on to my next question. In this industry, we need a community that really fortifies us to move us to the next level. And for a lot of people of color, their networks aren't parallel to their white counterparts. So it's either we have like lack of resources or not as much accessibility. What do you feel like how have you built your network overall?
I would say be open. I think don't limit yourself to just people that are within the ad industry. Personally, like I don't treat LinkedIn like I treat Instagram. Instagram, if I don't know your profile picture, I'm not accepting. But on LinkedIn, like, why not? Everyone that sends a connect, I'm accepting. Like, you never know when someone is going to reappear in your life in what capacity. So, and we've had people break into advertising from different backgrounds. So I would say the main thing is to just be open.
I think I'll piggyback. Oh, go ahead, Lee.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say my criteria has always been, those who have a mutual understanding of where you are in your situation in your life. So I've connected with other Cambodians because I know they struggle just as much as I did. And then I think another important thing is to find a network that you can struggle with and also celebrate with. So I've met plenty in school, and then even in the One Club, I was telling Lisa, our organizer, that I met her 10 years ago, who helped me get a portfolio review. And during those sessions, I got in contact with a lot of these students, and I'm still connected to today, who are in their careers. And there's even been times where we've kind of crossed paths in our professional life. So I think it's important to, kind of stay connected with those that you can struggle with.
Yeah, for me, it's been, in this industry, there's a lot of folks from different backgrounds and, in different people, to Lee's point, you just don't, different walks of life, you just don't know. But I've always worked on a theory of coworkers, colleagues, friends. And so my network is built on those friends. But when you first meet someone, they might be a coworker. Over time, when you realize you can rely on them and they're really folks that you're aligned with each other, they become colleagues. And then you'll find quickly that they become friends. And most of those friends and the folks that get to that level, you have them throughout your career and they've got your back. And even if you switch agencies or different spots where you work or even industries, you can pick up the phone and they've got you. So that's really been kind of how I've built mine.
Yeah, Van and I had to build networks IRL. We couldn't sit back at home and link into anybody unless it was with a cell phone, a brick phone. But my suggestion has always been, talking about people in network, is that you need to networks should be driven by what others need. And then you should match those needs with what you do well, what your superpower is. So it isn't, you can't expect to build a network always taking. You seek out the network, find out what the people in the network need, and do the things that you do well to help those people, and people will accept you. It's got to be a mutual and a reciprocal relationship. And the best ones for me have been when I've come to the party with something they're looking for, which means I know them. I've researched them. I know about them. I know what they're looking for. I get a sense of what it is they need, and I try to match that with what I do well. And for me, that works. So think about dating. You don't just show up and expect the other person to give you everything. You got to come with something.
I feel like when your intention is to network, some people come off or don't want to come off as like an opportunist. So it's like, how can I connect with this person organically without them thinking that I want everything from them? Like, I just want this little thing that I know it's like a stepping stone for me, you know? Like how
like they're humans. Talk to them. I mean, clearly you have 4 people here that have just talked for 15 minutes about themselves and their life experiences. People like to talk about how they got to where they got to. Like even if it's not asking specifically for a job, just, ask them to tell you how they got to where they got. And just that starts the conversation pretty easily.
You don't have to do it all at once, right? It all doesn't have to, like, you don't have to build a relationship. It's like Danny was saying, dating, like give it time, cultivate the relationship. Don't come in too hot, right? So you don't want that in a relationship. You definitely don't want that with some stranger come meet you in the parking lot saying, hey, here's my portfolio. It's a little weird. So exactly.
Yeah. Earlier you said, Stephanie, that you connect with people on LinkedIn and like you're open to that and you welcome that, you receive that, but on IG you're like, I don't know about all of that. But don't you feel like to some degree IG is just as much as a powerful tool, especially in this day and age?
Yeah, it's starting to become, but I still am kind of coming out of my like shell. I try to get like monitor and protect my feed so it's not just inundated with just stuff that I am not personally connected with and to. I try to support my friends when they have businesses and stuff like that, but for the most part, like Instagram is my escape from what I'm doing right now or work. And so I want to make sure it's like things that feed me emotionally. But I'm getting there. I'm realizing that, I need to open up myself a little bit more on Instagram.
You got the same way with social media too? Are you like the cutoff is like Facebook, or like the cutoff is Instagram, cutoff is Twitter, like you can only add me on LinkedIn? Like if people wanted to connect with you.
Yeah, I'm starting to use Instagram more as a way to network, because it's a way for me to see their stories in their life, and especially in a professional setting, if I'm following designers or other producers, they share their work on
all the time. Yeah.
Facebook, I'm kind of like, it's kind of fading out for me, but I stay connected because my mom wants to send me like photos and like articles.
Right.
Well, that's what WhatsApp for.
Yeah. But I recently started getting on TikTok, so like I feel like I'm a hot mess right now. I'm like, I feel like I'm going backwards, but
quarantine effect.
It's a quarantine effect, but I'm also on TikTok because of research and development for work, like and
Man, Danny, Instagram, no.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on. It's funny because the lines have blurred. I think 5 years ago you would have said, well, Facebook is for family and friends, LinkedIn is for work, Instagram is for fun. I don't know who's still on Facebook like that anymore. And LinkedIn, I'm getting videos and stuff that I would have normally gotten on Facebook or even on Instagram. So I'm on all the platforms and open to it.
I am as well. I separate what I do with them, but the agency uses Twitter and Instagram to amplify jobs, and I'm looking everywhere. I just saw an Instagram of a girl tap dancing, which everyone has seen already. Tap dance to hip hop, not tap dance. She actually does clogging to hip hop, and I pass it along because I'm interested in people doing things. I'm interested in. I've been talking to recruiters that we were looking to hire. What are you doing now to find people? And I'm looking everywhere. I want to find the most creative people out in the world. I don't care if they're necessarily looking for a job in advertising. I want to know what's next and what people are doing. And I want to break the rules of how we recruit and how we find people. So every platform's a place to find someone now.
Moving forward, I had this thought about the furloughs and layoffs that we've had, and in this country, it's been 36 million people, like unemployment claims, and overwhelmingly it's affected women and people of color. How do you guys, especially during this time, fight for people who are underrepresented? And what are your thoughts overall?
Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, my thoughts. I think, well, the hiring, before we get to the furloughs and the layoffs, but like the hiring of people of color and women has definitely been on the rise. I think that's definitely, like, diversity in advertising has been a point of conversation, as it should be, and for some time. Unfortunately, it's not always for the right reasons. Like, people of color or women sometimes are recruited or brought into agencies or companies, not necessarily for the qualifications that they actually have for the role or for the job, but because of the box that they're checking. Not in all instances, but in some instances that still can be the case. And so if they're good at their job, then that's kind of icing on the cake or cherry on top, but like their actual function, what they are brought onto the team for, can sometimes be tangential to, it's like the box check. So when it comes down to furloughs or layoffs, if that individual was not seen as like core or integral to the team in the first place, it's easy to see why they would be, on the chopping block when it comes down to that. I think that as people of color, we kind of have that mentality of like, don't mess it up for the one behind you, or don't mess it up for the next one, which can sometimes be an unfair weight that we carry, because we should be able to be seen for our individuality and what makes us ourselves and uniquely. But I do subscribe to it, because there's something to be said for us all being able to stand on the shoulders of those that have come before us. And so we obviously want to do that for those that are coming behind us. And so I tend to take a more personal approach. I've been fortunate to have, like, especially Black women, because I am one, like in junior roles, that will approach me and ask for either, mentorship or like just career advice or career guidance. Or I've, seen women that I may feel like I can share some insight with them, and we've built relationships that way. I've been able to like advocate for them either with their supervisors or even go to HR sometimes as the in-between while they haven't found their voice yet, per se. Whatever influence, little or big, that I've been able to amass, I will always, use it to try to clear pathways as much as I can for any candidates of color that come across my purview. So those opportunities do present themselves, and when they do, I'll always take advantage of them.
Yeah, this always happens with things like this, with disasters, with setbacks. The people with the least amount of power and the least amount of resources are hit first and hardest. That's just it. Yeah. Natural disasters, man-made disasters, it happens. And when those things happen, what I try to tell people and try to remember, and it's easy to say, obviously, but for me, people's differences are their destiny. The things that make people different. And for me, and I'm lucky and fortunate, I've finally gotten a position where I can make some real impact and make some real change. But I'm looking for difference, and we're affected first, often because we're the last ones in. That's usually first ones out, and that there are not many of us. So if you look at the numbers, it'll be overwhelming. But I advocate for it the same way I do when there's nothing going on, because we're at some point going to be hiring again, and when we do, it's going to be my business as usual, which was I'm looking to change the makeup of the company, and so is the company. We're looking to make it look like the world looks, and what makes people the thing that makes us work. And work better than we have is because we have people who are different. So yeah, it affects us, and that's not going to change. But those of us who can do something about it will continue to push.
I'm going to piggyback on that, Danny, about like we're in positions to make that impact, because I feel like we're incumbent to make sure that women and minorities are working in this industry and also being represented in our work. Because we are in those positions to change that lens all the way down to impacting to how we hire for our agencies and encouraging young talent to pursue these positions. So me as a producer, a digital producer, I'm invested in the work and how it's executed. Our production teams strive to work with minority-owned and women-owned production companies, working with agencies that can help us bring diverse talent. So, and I personally need to work with people with diverse backgrounds because I wholeheartedly believe that the work will just be better. So I'm fortunate to be in this position and have my job, and I'm going to continue fighting for those underrepresented roles.
I think nowadays too, there are more folks that are in the industry. There are more Dannys, there are more Vans, there are more Steph. There's more folks out there that you can look at and talk to, and that network. I'm not saying it's huge, but there are folks that you can look to connect to help you get there. And with the downturn, it's still tough, but that's when you make those connections. That someone sent a note just a second ago, well, sending a DM becoming hot. Well, it's not, but that's when you have the real conversations, you build the relationships now, so that as we come out of this, you'll have the opportunity to really talk about, well, I've talked to you now for a few months, you're the right man, woman, or whoever to fit in this role.
So for roles in general, like what do you guys have for people who are seeking jobs right now? Like, are places hiring? Are agencies hiring? How should people or these recent grads go about getting those entry-level junior positions?
I mean, we just talked about all the different social channels that we're on, but like, we all know how, when you have a new boo, how you find out the information you need to find out. You find out his name on Instagram, go to Twitter, see if he's on Facebook, keep that same energy and take it to LinkedIn. I mean, not to turn people into cyber stalkers, but like if you go to a company's website that you admire, find out who works there, go to LinkedIn, find out who else might, work there. If you have any connects, send connects to as many people as you can. If you know the email domain, guess their email address. A lot of them are the same, like Stephanie.Jones. So it's like, guess it. I mean, all you can do is get a bounce back. If you cold call, all you can do is get a no. Like, be creative and resourceful with the resources that we have.
Can I piggyback on one thing, and that is just be legit though. The cyber stalker thing is fine, but it's fun. It's funny, and when I was still on the agency side of the world, I had a person say, "Oh yeah, I've seen your work at XYZ, da 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 da," and I could tell the person wasn't being truthful. So I said, "So what was a particular thing that you saw that you liked?" And she had to say, "Oh, you got me." And it's like, there's a thing called Google. You don't have to work that hard.
Right.
So make the effort, try. You don't have, again, we had to do it back in the day in real life. Now you've got so many tools and so many platforms to find people. Just do your research.
Yeah.
I just want to say that I love the relationship analogy. I think people should go just as hard as if they were going for somebody that they were interested in. Like you said, their name, find their LinkedIn, find their website, find their Instagram, find their Facebook, and hit them up. Just like reach out, but reach out knowing something of the sort, like something that they might be interested in, that you were probably interested as well. Lee, Danny, do you have anything to say about that?
Well, other than you should not always swipe right.
Yes. Just have to say that, Danny. Oh man.
Yeah,
I'm just no. My wife. No.
I was about to say, what do you know about Danny?
But and what I mean is be particular. Learn what you can, the most you can about the place you want, not just everything about everybody. And it's not that you shouldn't flood. Maybe you shouldn't flood the market, but the first job I got that I was fired from, I at least decided that was the place I was going to work, and I was determined, and I learned everything I could about the place. So when it was time to at least talk to the people doing the hiring about it, I knew what I wanted. I knew what they did, and I didn't know so much about the rest. So just you know, there's not a better time to network and to learn. I mean, it's unfortunate that we are where we are, but there's time now. There's time to research and get really deep and read and know, so that when it's time to sit down in front of someone and talk, you know stuff. I've interviewed people where I said they didn't even look us up, I don't think. Right. So yeah, if we're going to go with the analogy of dating, there's some other parts of that you should probably think about.
For the one club. Okay, what were you going to say, Lee?
I was going to say, you know, another tip is don't always swipe right, you know, make sure you do your research. So use this time to be organized. And I learned this as I was applying for jobs. Like, you know, again, I was at my parents' house just applying 100 jobs, sometimes just sending the same exact resume just because I felt like I needed to. Yeah. And I learned the hard way, you know, like, so what I did was I organized my thoughts. I even created a spreadsheet, like here's who I'm contacting, get familiar with the industry and like what the agency's doing and the work that they produced. So when they ask you those questions that you are prepared, you know, nobody's saying that you aren't interested, but you don't want to be caught, you know, saying like, hey, we love this ad that you did and it's produced from another agency. That's a big no. And the last thing I'll say is like, you know, the job landscape has of course changed right now. So I think all people who are looking for jobs right now are deserve of consideration and respect. So I understand that recruiters are overwhelmed in their inbox. And it does kind of suck to get ghosted and you don't hear back. But again, if you are going to reach out, make sure it's personal and not just an automated, hey, what's the status of my resume? Like reach out with a purpose.
There's some practical, oh, go ahead, Ben, please.
I was just going to say, you know, we've been talking a lot about networking and reaching out and so on. This is also a great opportunity to work on your weakness. There's certain skills, and Lee, you brought it up earlier, you know, during the downtime, there's a lot of other time. Build a new skill set. If you don't know certain programs, certain things you want access to, learn now. Now is the time. So be better at the things that you never thought you'd ever do.
Mm-hmm. There's some practical things too. I know one club has their online portfolio review for the creatives out there that they'll review for you for free. If there are like specific staffing agencies, I'm sure you're all aware of, like are specific to advertising. And I was a part of Creative Circle for a while, and they will send you tips on different jobs. So look up different staffing agencies and get on their radar, get on their lists, so that you're getting these constant emails from them whenever they have openings.
And the One Club has a list of open positions that you can get to without paying. It's free, right? A free list. So use the resources like that. Skills here are four things I suggest people do or look at: Skillshare, Code Academy, LinkedIn Learning, and Udemy, which has just slashed prices, or Udemy has slashed prices for students. These are all free online resources to learn new skills, to advance it, get now or the time to close some skill gaps that you may have. And when you're looking at what agencies are looking for, and you go through what are they expecting people's skills to be, and you see a gap in it, go take this time to fill that gap, and that allows you then, when you're reaching out to hiring managers that you've reached out to, if you've completed a course, you have something to then tell them. You can say, I'm just checking back in. I just took this time to complete a course, because we're looking for people with initiative who aren't just waiting around, and who get what it is we're looking for. So take advantage of the time.
I also say, like, get creative with how you're finding jobs. You know, like it's not always going to be on the agency's website on their careers page. I was on LinkedIn yesterday, and there's a movement going on where people are posting saying, hey, if you were recently laid off or you're looking for a job, contact me and I'll try to help. And so everyone's reposting that. Sorry, I thought you were asking your question, Adrian. So, and then another thing is to, you know, find communities to be active in. I'm in one called Asian Americans in Advertising, Tech, and Media, and there's always, you know, articles there and like job postings and questions that people are engaging in. So that's another great way to continue networking.
And if it comes, the last thing I'll say is, you know, money. It's all, obviously we want to work in our field and do what drives us and our passion, but if it comes down to the job, like we've all said, there are transferable skill sets that you can take. I mean, I'm still using customer service skills that I learned when I was 18 at the concession stand at the movie theater. So like you can maybe for now, you know, open up yourself to jobs that may not necessarily be in advertising for now, just trying to glean different things that you can take into advertising when the time is right.
Yeah, I think Stephanie's right. This is not about forever.
Right.
I think this is right now, and you got to think about what you can do today in 30 days and 60 days and even 90 days. But I said at the top, I think this is the time you're playing the long game, and you keep applying, keep networking, but don't be afraid. Don't think of the next job as the perfect job. Just might be a short-term thing.
Really quickly, the One Club team, for those who are watching, they provide connections to industry professionals. So please stay connected with the One Club for creativity. Subscribe. They're gonna have many more panels like this in the future. Danny, you said in the long game, this is something where this might be something that's temporary. Is that what you're saying?
It better be temporary. Now, temporary might be a year, but
right.
Look, everything has been. All of the pandemics were temporary. I just can't tell you. I wish I could tell you when it'd be over, but yes, this is temporary.
Okay, so granted, you can't say when this will be over. Can you guys say when people will actually start hiring?
Go ahead, Seth.
I'm
going to answer, but I'm going to let Steph answer.
Hey, Stephanie, what's the date, Stephanie?
Yeah, give us a date. When are we going to start?
Let me look at my calendar because, you know.
right.
Yeah, Danny probably has a better answer, but I do think that while that is the most pressing concern, I think focusing on getting yourself out there so that whenever that date happens, you're on someone's radar. My first job, Yellow Pages again, they went out of business, unsurprisingly. And when they had a stream of steady layoffs at my company for like maybe a year, and all those people got a severance package. When it came down to like the last work closed, the people that were left, we got 2 weeks, left of a paycheck, and then they were like, "You're done." And I had been, for the past year, just looking and networking and reaching out to people. And by the time my last day was on Friday, I had a new day. I had a new job on Monday. I didn't have a single day out of work. So, right now is the time to continually talk to people and get yourself on their radar so that when they are thinking, okay, now I have a position, oh, who was that person that had sent me that really creative, resume or that video 2 months ago or 3 months ago that I might want to tap into now?
Yeah, I'll say just what Stephanie's saying is keep that momentum. It took me 9 months to get the job in Martin because there was a flux of business and they didn't have the position open at the time, and then it did and they didn't. So I just continued that momentum, reaching out to recruiter, getting in contact with folks at the Martin agency that I can just talk to. I think those informal conversations go a long way. So again, it's like find that network and that community and get people in your corner to help push you along, because they won't forget about you if you, continue talking to them.
Right.
We're going to hire again.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
in other words, eventually, y'all.
Yeah, well, of
hire.
course, and not to be flip, but I'm still looking, because I can't wait until everything with the all clear sign to then start finding people, because it's a process and it does take a while. Even when you see someone you want, it takes 2-3 weeks, a month to actually get someone from here's somebody I want to them being in the building. So any smart agency, and we're a smart agency, are looking now, because we're going to be in business. We're going to stay in business. So while I can't give a date, I do know that we never stop looking for people who can have impact.
Yeah.
Who are interested in coming to our agency and impacting culture, who have a point of view, who are hungry and doing interesting things. So, so the people who are staying in front of people now, and who will continue to stay in front of people during this, are the ones that, when it's time to,
they're gonna
yeah, right. Don't let it rest.
And I also think when we get on the other side of this, agencies start looking at juniors first.
Mhm.
You know, it's hard. It's an easier expenditure as they come out of a recession or come out of a struggle. And also, agencies are looking for freelancers. So you have to keep in mind those things as a part of your game and as part of your portfolio of what you're doing out there to stay active and engaged. And I know it may be hard. You know, a lot of folks are just graduating. There's a lot of frustration and trying to figure out what's going on, you know, at the other end of this. And we don't know, to Danny's point. But that's when you get in the game now. You can freelance, put yourself out there, not as I'm looking just for a full-time job at XYZ, but here's some creative things I can bring to your agency as a freelancer.
I also say, you know, start looking outside of advertising. Like, don't sit around and wait for
No.
positions to open up.
Yeah.
You know, look at companies and industries that are really thriving right now, and you know, like Slack and collaboration tools, things of that sort, or even like the engines behind all these services that people don't even think about. So Amazon Web Services and Google Cloud. I can get really digital here, but the point is there are companies that are hiring right now. Like Facebook has over 2,000 jobs, and they even have positions specifically for grads. You know, Netflix, YouTube, even
Squarespace.
Squarespace.
I mean, yeah, there are companies that are not in our business but are creatively driven companies, which I would love to say I'm hiring somebody who was at Squarespace for a year. I'm telling you, we are actively building an agency of people who aren't just from the industry we're in. And digitally focused and digitally active creatives in particular, but account people as well. So there are agencies that are hiring, like the ones Lee said, that look good on a resume when you're going to look for a next job if your next gig is advertising.
Yeah, I recall we had a webinar at our agency, and somebody asked a question like, how do we get grads to work at agencies again? Everyone's going in-house and working at brands. And the response was, don't let them go brands, because at some point, if they want to cross over to advertising, those perspectives and viewpoints working on the brand side is going to be very super valuable. Right. So don't stop students from doing that. And that's kind of my advice here, is like, look outside of advertising if you really have to, because you know, I didn't start off in advertising. I work at a digital agency building websites, and I always looked at Martin Agency as like my ultimate goal, but it took a couple of years to get there.
Did any of us start in an ad agency? No.
At all.
There you go.
I'm glad that you brought up, like, Lee, I'm glad that you brought up like working somewhere outside of your skill set, or maybe like somewhere you might have majored in advertising and public relations, and then you get a job in accounting. And when you start out, like, it's not always exactly what you think it's going to be. And Fan, I'm glad that you talked about freelancing, because a lot of grads are like, I got to get this job, I got to get a job. But it's like, there's so many projects that people just need help on. And it's going to last maybe 6 months, or maybe it's just like a 4-day shoot, you know? So I'm glad that you talked about that. I want to give some answers to the creative community who want to know, what can I do as a creative to better share my abilities with a firm that is facing hiring uncertainties? I have the talent, but I lack the stage.
Well, I don't know that you lack the stage, because every digital platform is a stage.
Yeah.
So I can see anybody's skills from a distance. I don't know exactly specifically what those skills this person's talking about, but nothing is stopping anyone from showing their abilities. What's hard is cutting through the other 20 million people trying to show their abilities, but at the same time, we're looking for people who are really good. So talent cuts through, and I think talent's going to be people's powers. I mean, if you're good, I'll find you.
And creativity cuts through too. Abu was telling us about that person. I think they applied to Martin, and they had sent their I guess maybe in addition to their book, but like a TikTok video that was
Yeah.
like, these are the insights about me, and just like a creative way, 15 seconds, that they used, something that is culturally relevant and in a creative way to break through.
Yeah.
I love me a good TikTok video, like honestly. Seriously, ever since downloading that app, like, man, people are so creative, and I think it's changing the way that people consume content and create content. So I think my tip is show your work. We have social platforms that is your stage. I come across work all the time on my feed or even my LinkedIn, and I like the designer, and I share that name with a recruiter. I'm like, hey, this person's cool. So share your work. Don't be afraid to do that. Ask for constructive criticism or feedback, and show it off. And that's the only way to make sure that you're seen and let your talent shine through.
I feel like a lot of our recent grads feel a little desperate. And
We've been there.
right.
Yeah.
I like to think we all have at some point, but you don't want to move on desperation, right? You want to move confidently. You want to move in a way that you're like, I can do this. I can excel at this. Like, I don't need to be like on my knees. Like, what am I going to do? Because it's all going to work out eventually if you have that kind of faith. Lee, somebody in the comments said that they relate to your story. I kind of feel like you answered their question already, but I still want you to hear it. They said, I greatly enjoyed your story about building your mom's website, and I found myself in those very shoes. I have a formidable portfolio full of film, content, graphic design, startup business, and branding efforts. I don't know if we can name drop. Can we name drop here and say people's sites? Because they definitely put their site like, hey, by the way, this is my site.
I'll look at it for sure. Yeah.
We'll find it.
Yeah.
My work is available online at www.jackfarmarketing.com. However, I feel that I can't share my abilities with potential employers right now. What can I do better to share my unique talents with the firms such as Martin? And what about other agencies facing hiring difficulties? And this also makes me think about you, Danny, because you said earlier how you like different and how, being different is a part of your destiny. So I also want all of you to think about that question in terms of what makes people stand out when there's like millions of people like applying these days.
Yeah.
I just want to say one thing that's part of this and not part of this, which is we have to acknowledge that this is stressful for a lot of folks. So we all and everyone on the panel recognize this is a tough time, and we're all making adjustments. And I think it's important to know that it's okay to go through the grieving stages to really get back to what you're 100%. So take your time too, because it's gonna, like Danny said, this is gonna be a process, and to be your best self, there's self-care that's in there too. So then you can prepare to get your game face on. So be fair to yourself and give yourself a pause as well as you're trying to get back into the game or get into the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'll say also don't sit there and compare yourself to others. You can measure up and aspire, but it will eat you up. And, I did that as a student because I would look at other people's like work or, mid-level and senior level designers, and I just was not there. And it kind of hindered me from wanting to share my work. I was too scared to get the feedback, and I didn't want to post my work up there. But I think you kind of have to put that aside and make sure that you're true to yourself, and make sure that your story, you write your own narrative. So to answer the question about how do I get my work out there is continue to stay engaged in those communities. If it's not LinkedIn, like get on Dribbble or something. Because I'm people like me, I'm scanning those. So I may come across your work, and I may contact you. And then again, don't be afraid to send your link to somebody at the agency and say, hey, I would love to get your feedback on this particular project. You're a digital producer. I'm trying to scale my work to be a little bit more digital or social. Can I get your feedback? So again, contact folks with a purpose and have intention with that communication.
I'll just add this because, Van said self-care, and I can go on a whole tangent about self-care, but I will just say this, that yes. I think a through line for everything that we've been kind of saying so far is like you can only control what is within the sphere of your control, and that is you. None of us can control when we're going to start hiring again. None of us can control when, you know, we're going to get a vaccine, when any of this stuff is going to go away. Like, all you can do, and it's going to be spinning your wheels and creating more anxiety, to focus on things that you cannot control. So try, as hard as it is, when it's not easy, but try to only focus on things that you can actually control and change, about yourself, about what you're doing, about who you're reaching out to and when. And that will kind of alleviate some of the anxiety.
I'm assuming most of us are probably at home. So again, when I moved back home after I graduated, it was almost 6 to 8 months that I was there with my parents, and it was just us three. So I took that time to ask them questions, like to learn about their stories and their past, because all that is rooted into how I grew up and what I represent. So given that we're all at home and we're probably with families, take that time to acknowledge that and take those stories with you, even in your professional life.
Someone asked specifically, and I feel like we're just getting these questions because people are more so anxious, but they want to know, like, well, who should we contact directly? You know, should we contact the HR director? Should we contact the creative director? Like, who should we go to?
I mean, why is that question? I literally just this morning, you know, like, got an email from a previous coworker that is looking for a job. I'm not an HR, but I took his resume and sent it to HR. Like, that's
and I've seen it already.
Oh, have you? Okay.
And
Look at that.
He's like, that's my boss, by the way, guys. No, this is the boss.
Yes. So, I mean, seriously, it happens. I have no power outside of literally forwarding an email, and people are willing to do that. So send it to the creative director and send it to HR. If they both see it, great. If one of them sees it and send it to both, great.
Yeah, I would send it. Yeah, I would send it to everyone. I would also make sure you acknowledge when you send it that you know that things are crazy and hard when you do. Just, you know, I'd love to learn about X when things are a little bit more settled, or just at least make sure that they know, you know, that we're still dealing with this too. The people who are employed and working. So it's going to take longer for us to get back to people. It's just going to take longer for us to see things. But at the same time, you know, you do the LinkedIn stalking and send it to the people you want. Yeah, just and don't worry about where it goes.
Right.
Just worry about what it looks like
it
when goes and what it says.
Do you feel like people lose their value because, and I'm speaking for people who don't have jobs, people who are unemployed and are looking, and then boom, what if they do find a job? Like, after looking for 6 months, after looking for a year, and they do find a job, do you feel like people lose their value because they haven't had worked in so long? Are you still looking at those candidates?
That's the one benefit. If we're going to try to find a silver lining, like, you all have an excuse as to why you haven't been working for however long. Yeah. Like, the whole world will understand, COVID. Yeah. And that's what we want to say.
We'll understand.
Yeah.
Just don't, but fill that time with something, because we won't understand if you had a year and all you did was graduate. And then
you connected on LinkedIn.
Yeah, be able to say the things you did during that time. So but yeah, no, you have the world's actually, this is a global excuse, and we're using it as agencies, and people should use it. Nobody's going to question the gap during this time.
Somebody in the creative community had asked, I'm sure a lot of us have a bunch of student loan debt that they have to start paying back sooner than later. With everything going on and agencies being unable to give us the higher end of the salary range, how do you think we should go about negotiating salaries if we get to that point?
These are juniors?
Are you saying that juniors shouldn't negotiate salaries?
I'm not saying that.
No.
I would say this though: know the market. Know that there's a lot of people right now looking for jobs as well. Be very careful about how you negotiate, because that that window is there's a little space in there maybe, but you don't want to be perceived as someone who doesn't understand what's going on in the rest of the world. So there's probably a little wiggle room to say, well, what about this versus that? But, you know, to Danny's point, you know, you're talking about entry level work, and you need to be conscious of that.
Yeah, it's an opportunity cost. I mean, I know exactly how the graduates are feeling. Like when I moved back home, I think I got a payment notice for my loans before I even got my physical diploma in the mail. So I was making payments. So
Oh, wow.
Imagine that as a reality. And that's when it really hit. So I did whatever I could to just make those payments. You know, like I took on internships in between or freelance work, and then when I got my first job, you know, I wouldn't say I didn't negotiate, but I was willing to take on anything I could because I knew there was going to be opportunities later on when I got experience. So I did 3 years in New York, and I came back down. And then that's when I felt more comfortable negotiating my salary because I knew my worth and my value. So during this time, that's where you need to kind of figure out too, is what is your worth?
Someone asks, is a conceptual skills, like the ability to form a big idea, more important than design skills from an art director?
I think they're both valuable and needed. And I mean, this industry is so collaborative, and it's just filled with teamwork. So, you know, there will be someone there to say, hey, how can we make this bigger? You know, and to kind of stretch everyone so that we're putting the best foot forward from the collective. But everyone has their role.
Yeah, I think the bigger trait is finding ways where you can be indispensable. Like my role did not exist a couple of years ago when I got out of school, and I just kind of did it myself because I was kind of dabbling in development and design. I was not a great art director, you know. Thank you, One Club, for the portfolio review, but I've learned that I just was not a great art director. So I kind of helped find my own career and just found like where I could bring value and contribute to the work.
This question.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I would just say quickly, concepts over anything. Just big thinking over concept over headlines, concept over pictures, ideas over execution.
Concept is the initiation. You have to have concept to start anything.
Yeah.
Unless you're like, I don't know, Lil Wayne or something.
No. Even Weezy needs a concept.
Yeah. What value do you feel diversity brings to the work you do and to the culture at the Martin Agency and VCU? This question is submitted by Aaron from Atlanta, Georgia.
I can speak to VCU. You know, I've seen over the last 2 years and understanding how the students are, more value and better work has come out of our students because there's a more diverse pool. And because of that, you know, because our students are always pushing and pulling each other creatively anyway. And so their unique and diverse experiences always create a better scenario versus a monolithic point of view.
I mean, there's studies that have talked about the increased productivity and creativity that comes when you have a diverse workforce. So there's definitely just science and fact. But, you know, in this industry, and I think maybe Danny touched on it too, like we're trying to create conversations and talk with people and not just talk at them. And so the more successful agencies are going to be comprised or made up of people that reflect the audiences that they're intending to reach. So especially in advertising, it's so important to have diversity of thoughts, diversity across a bunch of different categories, because our clients are reaching different types of people.
I'm getting the alarm right now to like wrap up. But before we go, I just wanted to say that looking for a job is a job. Like was said earlier, this is the time to find what your skill set is, to be masterful at it as much as you can. Do any of you have any parting words for our audience, our recent grads, class of 2020?
I want to do what Van did, acknowledge we know this is tough. I'm a theoretical pessimist and an operational optimist. And I believe in practice, we're gonna be all right.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you, One Club for Creativity. I'm your host, your moderator, Ken Fredericks. Thank you to our panelists. Ciao, guys.
Hi, thank you all for attending today's session. It was so amazing to see you all interacting with each other in the comments, sharing LinkedIn's and Instagram posts. Thank you again to all of our panelists and our moderator, and to the VCU Brand Center and the Martin Agency. Please visit the One Club website for more information about Creative Month. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You.
Thanks, everyone.